All right, new question. First thing as always, first things first, read the question sentence. So here's what we got. Question sentence reads, for how many minutes is the studio in use? And we see here in parentheses that we have some clarifying detail that says count overlapping time only once. So before we get started, everybody, if we see that, let's say there's an overlap, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 for these two individual classes or things or whatever, are we going to count both of these half-hour periods from right here to here and right there to there? Or are we only going to count one? Correct. Yeah, we're not going to count both. We're only going to count it once. We could have had another class that ran from here to here. Again, with all of this being an overlap, we would only count this once and not count it again. And again, we don't count these twice because we already counted it there. So notice when you run your finger down, it's only marked once for each time slot. 9 to 9:30, check, don't count it again. Over here, count it once, don't count it again. So we just kind of go down that time slot and again, make sure that overlaps are only counted once. So let's get it done here. Let's remove all of this hypothetical and let's use the context that we have. A gym schedules classes, yoga from 8 to 8:45, cycling 8:30 to 9:15, and HIIT from 9 a.m. to 9:30. From 8 to 9:30, for how many minutes is the studio in use? Counting overlapping time only once. So with that said, everybody, we are going to say from 8 to 9:30, so that's an hour and a half period. We have yoga from 8 to 8:45. Then we have cycling from 8:30 to 9:15. And then before we even start talking about HIIT, I'm going to have that discussion with you about yoga and cycling. So that's this right here. We're going to have that discussion because just like we just showed in that miniature graphic series that we just showed, we are going to notice that there's an overlap from 8:30 to 8:45, everybody. So when we think about that, from 8:30 to 8:45, we're only going to count it once. So we are going to say, hey, we have 45 minutes of yoga from 8 to 8:35 or 8:45. And then for our cycling class, let me write this over here. That first 15 minutes from 8:30 to 8:45, that's already counted here in yoga. That's already counted. So we're not going to count it again. So we're going to start from 8:45 to 9:15. My party people, before I continue, does that make, again, general sense in your head? Just the idea of not double counting 8:30 to 8:45 because it was already counted before, and then starting our count from 8:45. Not 8:30, because again, look, this class ends at 8:45. So 8:30 means this class is already still going. So we don't count it twice. Everyone, how many minutes goes from 8:45 to 9:15? 15 minutes to get to 9 o'clock. 15 more to get to 9:15. Yeah, and that's going to make it 30 minutes. So let's write that down in green. And let's get to the last part. We have our HIIT class, high intensity interval training, and that's going to go from 9 to 9:30. My party people, are we going to count the entire 30-minute period? Are we going to count the entire 30-minute period? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because similar to the yoga class overlapping with cycling, cycling overlaps with the HIIT class. Again, it ends at 9:15. HIIT starts at 9 a.m. So that first 15 minutes, we're not going to count twice. We are going to begin at 9:15 in terms of starting that count, and that's just going to be an extra 15 minutes. 9:15 to 9:30. So there we are, everybody. We have the 3 separate time frames, 45, 30, and 15. And we just add it together. And that's going to give us a grand total of 90 minutes. And that's going to conclude us here at answer choice B. So hopefully we feel pretty good about that. The idea here, again, the main idea is making sure that we are not counting the same time period twice. So the room is occupied. If there is 1 class or 2 classes going on, it's still occupied. So there it is, my party people. Hopefully we are feeling pretty good about that, and I hope you're ready for what comes next. All right, in this next practice problem, what I see over here is the question sentence reading, what is the volume of the barrel? And then right here underneath, it might be easy to skip over, but it says, leave your answer in terms of pi. All right, everyone. So a quick question on that right there. Yes or no? Do we leave pi, or excuse me, do we turn pi into 3.14 in this problem? Do we turn pi into 3.14? Correct. Answer is no, we do not. We leave it as is. So if we're supposed to multiply by pi, just leave it as the symbol. That's all that means. So with that, the primary objective, we're going to find the volume, and specifically of this barrel. We need to know what shape first, because that's going to tell us what formula to use. Is it side cubed? Is it length times width times height? Is it something else? And it's going to be that something else, because we see right here it says cylindrical water barrel. So we're dealing with a cylinder. And so when we're dealing with a cylinder here, we're going to write out that volume formula, which we should know, as volume equals pi multiplied by our radius squared multiplied by the height. I know that's a lot of detail there, but again, we just want to say pi r squared times height. Now, let's go ahead and plug in our values, and we're done. We just have to make sure we pay attention to the order of operations, and we should be relatively unscathed when we finish. Our radius is 3 feet, and the height is 7. When we plug things in correctly, we have pi multiplied by that radius, which is 3. Don't forget about that exponent right there, squared. And then we have the height, which is 7. So, carefully here, we do not want to jump the gun and do 3 times 7, because first we have to perform the exponent. 3 squared, that's going to give us 9. So we have pi times 9 multiplied by 7. 9 times 7 giving us 63. And so our final answer can safely be written as 63 pi cubic feet. And there we go. There's our correct final answer, 63 pi cubic feet. And that is answer choice A. Boom, right there. We just have to make sure we follow the order of operations properly after we plug the values into the right formula. And then it's all easy. And that's the problem. We have to remember those good, finer details. So in the next problem, keep your best up, and let's see if we can keep paying attention to those details.